we're gonna go ahead and get started. Oh yeah, so let me start my video because we do have some.
Yep, I see you.
Can you see me?
And are you unmuted?
Okay. Oh yeah, there I am. I can't see myself on here. All right, hello Zoom guests. Hello, all of you that are here in the room. Thank you everyone for coming to our second annual Marine Debris Kickoff event. So I first just want to acknowledge that we are on Ani and that the beaches that we will be cleaning are the ancestral lands of Chilkoot and Chilkoot. I'd like to give an extra special gunashish to Skinya Kla, who's Nancy Keene, and Katu, Kylie Larson. They worked with the 6th grade students on their marine debris story map and helped them with the Tlingit place names of the different beaches that we cleaned last year and that we'll be cleaning again this year. I also would like to give a big shout out to Christina Turman, who is just very supportive. She answers all my calls and helps me with all my questions. It takes a lot to plan a big marine debris event, and it's really nice to have that support. So not only does she come up to help clean, but she provides education and great resources. Another huge thank you to our partners at the Chilkoot Indian Association, especially Jake Bell, Liam Wyrick Cassidy, and Luke Williams. They're helping with all of the boat transportation, hauling trash, a lot of those logistics. Thanks to Community Waste Solutions for accepting all of the marine debris and waiving the fee. Haines Library for co-hosting this event with us. The Haines Borough is providing the dump truck that will haul all of the marine debris for us. The distillery and brewery gave us their old grain bags so we don't have to use new bags for cleaning up the garbage. Haines Friends of Recycling have put up these nice displays, and a number of them are here tonight. So do chat with them. They have lots of exciting things going on. And TWC board members, Kip Kermoyne and Mark Sagi, for volunteering their time to help and their personal boats. I also want to thank my coworkers at Takshanuk Watershed Council, Stacy Evans, Dan Schultz, Derek Poinsett, and Cindy Zuaga Jimenez. Not only are they volunteering their time, but they're also donating their boats for us to use. I think as many of you know, we have probably like really a million projects going on at Takshanuk. And so it takes a lot for them to step away from their busy work and help with this event. And I want to thank all of our presenters. Thank you, Patrick Simpson, for coming to town to present, and Nicole Baker for being here. Peter Murphy will be sharing tomorrow, and Christina Turman will be doing our training. And of course, our 6th grade students, Christina, Nathan, Gwendolyn, and Gabby, they're going to be sharing a story map project that they made that will share our data collection from last year. Okay, and most of all, thank you to all of you for being here and for volunteering your time to help clean up our beaches. So I'm going to pass it off to Nicole. First, I'm going to say a few things about her. She's the founder of Net Your Problem. She's also the Alaska and Pacific Northwest Division Coordinator and Recycler Liaison for Net Your Problem. She was a former North Pacific groundfish fisheries observer who became actively involved in looking for a way to recycle fishing nets from Unalaska. Her interest in this topic was inspired by Parley for the Ocean's collaboration with Adidas to make sneakers out of confiscated fishing nets. And since 2015, she has been looking for fishermen with nets to get rid of and recyclers who will take nets. So thank you so much, Nicole, and I will hand it off to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tracy. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm in Juneau right now. I had to take the ferry yesterday in order to make it over for the Maritime Festival here. So I just missed it by a day, but I'm very close. And today I'm going to talk about my business, which recycles maritime waste. So I used to say that we recycle commercial fishing gear, but now we're sort of doing marine debris and barge lines from AML and other kinds of things. So we're saying that we recycle maritime waste. And basically, I'm going to talk about the business and what we do and what it turns into. And when I was in Haines yesterday, I left some show and tell items with Molly. So when things are relevant, she can showcase that. And then I also have a slide at the end for us to just review anything that we haven't gone over yet. And so, as Tracy mentioned, I have a background in commercial fishing as a fisheries observer. So I have a bachelor's degree in marine biology from a university in Rhode Island and a master's from a university in Puerto Rico. But really the more relevant part of the story is that I worked as an observer. I did that for 5 years, and is where I sort of first became aware of the issue of derelict or abandoned fishing nets. And I collected gear for the first time in 2017 with support of a nonprofit while I was still working at the University of Washington in Seattle as a fisheries biologist. And I really liked what I was doing. I thought there was a huge need for it. And I was just thinking to myself, like, how would I be able to keep doing this? And so for me, the solution to that was to operate it as a business, which I will talk about in a minute. But Tracy also mentioned this idea of the sneakers. And so the sort of conceptual idea for Net Your Problem was born in 2015, even though I didn't start collecting gear until 2017. And it was because I was sitting outside of a library, actually, on Alaska, and I read a story about Parlay for the Oceans, which is a nonprofit that had made this prototype sneaker that you see here on the left-hand side. And the material that they were making it from was nets that had been confiscated from illegal fishing vessels in the Southern Ocean. And that for me was the first idea that nets were made out of plastic. So I think a lot of times you can look at an item and you can know that it's made out of plastic. If you look at a water bottle or a milk jug, you're like, yep, that's plastic. But if you look at your clothes, if it's made out of polyester or nylon, that link is not immediate, but polyester and nylon are both types of plastic. So all that to say that this is sort of when I first became aware that nets were made out of plastic and as such should be recycled. And so I was working on a trawler at the time, and I texted or tweeted, I guess, the CEO of Parlay, and I was like, I have nets for your shoes. And sort of this is how I became first involved in this whole idea. But I mentioned that, I was thinking about how would I keep this going. And so I decided to start a business in 2018 that currently has 2 full-time employees, myself, and then another regional coordinator in New England in the Northeast United States, and 1 part-time employee in Southern California. And we collect 3 main different types of plastic. So HDPE is high density polyethylene. That's what milk jugs are made out of. If you're familiar with the chasing arrows or triangle icon on plastic, is number 2s. Polypropylene is number 5s and is what yogurt containers are made out of. And PA6 is nylon, which is what clothing is made out of. And so we collect these 3 types from around the United States, in Alaska, the West Coast, and the East Coast. And we do it under this sort of waste management or prevention approach. So if we think about how does our work interface with the marine debris world, it's basically easier and cheaper to prevent stuff from getting in the water in the first place, instead of cleaning it up afterwards. And we work with local groups that are collecting fishing gear to find new places to send it, in addition to starting our own collection schemes. And so HFR would be one of these local groups that we work with. We don't do the collection of the gear in Haines, HFR does, but they send it to us and we help it find a new home. And we work according to this waste management hierarchy. So I'll just preface this with saying there are a lot of different versions of this, and it sort of depends on your value system or your limitations or what things you prioritize. So this is the Net Your Problem version. But basically, if we have something to get rid of, we want to try to reuse it first. We want to mechanically recycle it if possible next, which is basically when something gets shredded and melted and turned into little plastic beads that can be used in manufacturing. After that, we'll try to do advanced or chemical recycling, which is basically when you break down plastic into the carbon and hydrogen building blocks that it came from, and then you sort of build it back up into a like virgin type of plastic. Then we try to do waste to energy or waste to alternative fuels. So this is when you burn plastic and you get energy from it that runs alternative industries. And when I say burn plastic, I mean in a EPA permitted facility, not in a 55-gallon drum in your backyard emitting black smoke. If we can't do those kinds of things, then just straight up incineration where you don't derive any products from it would be next. Landfill would be the last option. And then if we're talking about marine debris, pulling it above the tide line is at least better than doing nothing. And Tracy, I don't know how you want to do questions, but I'm happy to like stop and see if anybody has any questions before I move on. So maybe I'll just pause here and see if anybody has anything so far. Nope. Okay. I'll move on then. Oh, I guess the one more bullet on this slide was, oh yeah, so part of what we do, I guess, is then to address the lack of supply of recycled plastic for use in manufacturing. So we try to get plastic back into the manufacturing supply chain. And this is sort of the life cycle of a fishing net that gets recycled with us. So if we start at the top here, a net is actively being fished. And this is using a trawl net as an example. So it's being towed behind a boat and catching fish. And then eventually that net is going to come to the end of its useful life, just like a lot of different products that we have in our world. It's either too stretched out or a new and greater one came on the market, or it's just been patched too many times that they don't want to fix it anymore. So the net is going to go into one of our storage depots kind of that we have set up all over Alaska. And then the net is going to go through some form of preparation, which primarily involves sorting it into the different types of plastic and probably baling it. So that means putting it in a machine that squishes it down and puts straps around it. And that makes it really easy for us to load on a barge or in a container or on a flatbed so that we can ship it to the recycling facility. Then that recycling facility is going to do primarily mechanical recycling. And as I mentioned, that's when you shred the net and melt it and turn it into these little beads. And then those little beads can be used in a variety of different manufacturing applications. So here we have kayaks, picnic tables, sunglasses, bathing suits. So a lot of different things can be made out of the nets once they've been turned into that pellet form. This is our mission statement. So engaging a variety of stakeholders and partners to create economically viable pathways to recycle end-of-life gear. And I have economically viable here because we don't want to, as I mentioned, like keep going with this grants model. We want to figure out a way for everything to pay for itself so that these programs that we set up can keep continuing. We're trying to improve waste management, contribute to the circular economy, and then as a result of utilizing the recycled plastic, reduce energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. How we make money as we are a business is primarily in 3 ways. So we charge a recycling fee to the fishing industry or the port or the city. We send nets to the recycling company and then they pay us for those raw materials. And then we also have other industries that contribute, not in these 2 designated ways, but that see value in our services and want to help promote and provide resources for that to happen. We primarily accept end-of-life fishing gear. And so I have the definition of end-of-life here, which is basically, you know, fishing gear parts that can no longer fulfill their desired function or are at their end of their life. And so the owner intends to discard or dispose of them. So this is what we primarily focus on. And I mentioned the 3 types of plastic before. So trawl web over here on the left is HDPE. Lines are over here on the right are polypropylene, and then seines and gill nets are nylon 6. So that's the 4 main fisheries that we collect gear from at the moment. But we have also sort of dabbled in the marine debris world. So there is a recycler in British Columbia that can process certain kinds of marine debris. So they've given us this sorting guide of what they can accept. And so we have worked with a couple of groups that want to recycle the debris that is collected. And so this has to start like very early in the planning stages. We need to make sure that we have enough labor and resources and sorting protocols and different super sacks or whatever to keep everything separate. We need to make sure that we have a budget for the recycling. So we kind of work with groups that involve us very early in the planning process. But if you've already done a marine debris cleanup and you have a bunch of bags of debris and you call and say, hey, I want to recycle this, that's not, normally possible because it's not been sorted properly and there isn't the budget for dealing with it. And basically, if we consider, I guess, marine debris, there is sort of this demand for OBP, which it is sometimes called ocean-bound plastic, and recycled plastic in the materials marketplace. There are companies that want to use this type of plastic in their products so they can, say they're saving the world, basically. And so to take advantage of this demand, there really is some critical things that we need to do. Sorting being number one, transporting it, and then processing it into something that is valuable. But there is a demand for this, so which is why we kind of have got involved in that. One more thing I think that I want to say about marine debris is I think it's very difficult for organizations, probably a lot of ones that are in the room, to operate on grants and volunteers and unpaid labor. So I always, when I talk about marine debris cleanups and how valuable the plastic is that is collected, try to say this, because I think if we want to like really scale up stuff and continue work long term, we need to think a little differently about marine debris cleanups. And so, if you think of the role of a business in the world, it's to provide a service and a raw material that people need. And cities need clean beaches for people to come and visit, and manufacturers need those raw materials in order to make items that people need. So imagine if, TWC charged the city of Haines or the Borough of Haines to do a beach cleanup, which sounds kind of weird from the way that we currently operate. But I like to think of it that somebody is getting paid for their time for providing a service that somebody else needs. So I always just like to mention this when we're thinking about marine debris cleanups and talking about it, because I think it's not something that really is talked about a lot. And for whatever reason, we think it's okay for volunteers and unpaid labor to do this work. But I would just kind of challenge us to think a little bit differently. And maybe I will pause here for a minute before I continue, just to see if there's any other questions at the moment.
Okay.
Maybe there's something in the chat. We can put questions in the chat. Okay, if you guys want to type the question, we can do that. Maybe I'll keep going. No live questions. Okay, perfect. Okay, so then I just wanted to briefly talk about this yellow rope story, which is something that we did in Washington about marine debris and recycled plastic. And so this is a picture of an oyster on a yellow rope from the aquaculture industry. And so when these shells were being put back into the environment, they were being put back with these ropes attached. And like tens of thousands of these ropes were washing up on the beaches of Washington. And so we decided to count these and collect them separately from other marine debris and transport them to our warehouse. And we had like, I don't know, at one point, like we collected 19,000 on a particular day. And we sent them to a recycling company in British Columbia that turned them into these pellets. And then we worked with students at Western Washington University in Bellingham to design this mold here that you see in the injection molding machine. And that produced this crab gauge that I think Molly has an example of that she could hold up. But basically it's something that measures crab to see if they're legal size or not. So we manufactured these. It says the product is made from recycled rope. We sold them to Sea Grant, and Sea Grant was passing them out to recreational boaters. And so that's just one example of how you can use marine debris and turn it into a valuable product. And this was the team that sort of worked on this. It's hard to tell with everybody's masks, but this guy's from Sea Grant. This is the lady who organized the cleanups, Lee First. This lady and this guy in the Christmas sweater are from Western. And so it was just a really cool project. And if you think about sort of the journey that those yellow ropes went to be turned into a useful product. I think I don't have too much time left, maybe 5 minutes, but just I wanted to briefly outline some of our steps to success that we kind of have for the variety of things that we work on, marine debris and otherwise. We have these sort of local representatives. So I'm the Pacific Northwest representative. We have a New England person that kind of like understands what's going on locally. We will basically work with anyone. We have two different ways of collecting gear. One is loading containers on site if they have enough material. The other is to send it to a warehouse where we can kind of gather enough material to make it worth it to send. Baling gear to maximize volume in shipping companies, shipping containers. And then we're also working on expanding the amount of domestic recycling companies that we're working with. These are all the places in Alaska that we are either working or trying to work. So pretty much like around the state, we either have active collection programs or we're really thinking about doing something there. So I would say Homer is going to be the new spot for this year. And then we're also going on 2 scoping missions, one to Valdez and one to Sandpoint later this summer to sort of see what's going on there. And over the course of the 8 or 7 years that we've been in business, we've diverted 2.5057 million pounds of fishing gear from the environment. And we've done that by working with the fishing industry, harbors and ports, local governments, net manufacturers, the recycling companies, tribes, community groups, including HFR. And so it's definitely not something that we are doing on our own. Otherwise, I think that's really it. And Molly can finish the show and tell, and I'll take any questions in the last couple of minutes. Let's see what came in the chat here. You're welcome. Great.
Feel that well. And then Nicole didn't get a chance to talk about it, but she has a really groovy device or widget called a spectrometer, which we at Haines are hoping to get, which uses the light spectrum to identify the chemical profile of different plastics. And so, you know, she works with three main types of plastics that she named, and using that device, we were able to test things like plastic and tarp and super sacks and web, and get the chemical profile identified so we knew exactly what type of plastic it was. And so we found out that the hangings from gill nets are another type of nylon, PA 66, where the web is PA 6. Is that right, Nicole? Yeah. So that's a really cool tool for both marine debris and net recycling. Here's a pair of earrings that are 3D printed fishnets. So that is a really cool item that is made. This little knife has a fishnet handle. Let's see, the deodorant bottle, Nicole, it's not fishnets, is it?
Yes.
It's ocean plastic. Anyway, these are just some items. Here's a type of clothespin. These are all small items that are for demo, but there's lots of clothing, textiles, skateboards, kayaks, auto dashboards, all kinds of things that are made out of either ocean plastic or fish nets. Brundon's is partnering with Nicole. This particular hat is not made out of fish nets, but they do use recycled fish nets in their sport and clothing gear. So I think that's about all I have.
Does anybody have any questions for Nicole? Thanks for sharing that, Molly, and thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing your presentation. We gave you a round of applause, but we had to mute. We were having bad echoing. So really appreciate it. And yeah. All right. Well, we're going to move on then to our next presentation. So our next group are our 6th grade students. And so I'll have you come on up here. We've got Nathan, Christina, Gabby, and Gwendolyn. And other 6th grade students who are in the audience who actually also helped with this project. So the 6th graders made a story map. They used ArcGIS and they made a story map that shows the beaches that we cleaned last year and the type of debris that we found on the beaches. And so these 4 brave individuals have volunteered to share the project with you all. And once they're done sharing it, then we'll put it up on our website and share it on social media so everyone will have access to it. Oh yeah, let's turn the video. Here they are. Okay, so we're gonna go to share our screen. Are you guys ready? Let's make that full screen. Oh, I can get this full screen. Okay, so do you want me to be the one to click through it? Or do you want?
I guess I.
How about I'll click through it. Have it on you guys. Okay. So do you want to go ahead and introduce the project?
Marine debris in Alaska in 2023, over 150 volunteers took nearly 3,000 pounds and 2 dump truck loads of trash off of 8 local beaches, 6th grade students. I don't know how to say this name, but this is our Quintet Patsy. I don't know how to read that one, but it's the Quintet name for Waterfall Creek. Data, George, Robert, Charlie, and Gwendolyn. The great. Make a slideshow. There were 24 volunteers who cleaned up the speech on May 10th. wait, no, May 10th, 2023. The volunteers found 239 fishing related items on the beach. They found 455 construction and packaging items. Volunteers recovered 527 items of household waste. They found 360 items of consumer goods and food. The volunteers also removed 1,865 microplastic pieces.
Which is a lot to count. So
Like the trinket name for world, and then breathing experiment.
which are the names for Battery Point and Calgayo?
Asher, Eli, Asher, Penelope, and Magnus. 34 volunteers cleaned this beach on May 17th, 2023. $108 items with fishing material were found, including fishing lines, bait, boxes, buoys, and more. $199 items of construction and packaging items were found, including plastic pipes, treated timber, pallets, and more. $97 items of household waste were found, including tires, clothing, footwear, toys, and more. $193 items of consumer goods and foodware were found, including plastic bottles and more. Uh, 248 pieces of microplastic was found. Cleaning up, Tracy. Okay, I can't really announce the phone. That's okay. Um, 9 volunteers helped clean up this beach on May 11th, 2023, and May 16th, 2023. A total of 4,417 pieces of waste was found. They picked up 365 items, including fishing lines, bait boxes, buoys, and more. They found 502 construction and packaging materials like tires, plastic tarps, treated timber, pallets, and more. There were 861 items found on the beach, including tires, footwear, toys, and more. They found 811 plastic items such as plastic utensils and food packaging. They found 1,878 pieces of microplastic in Takshanuk Harbor. Sushi, and Catagon.
Very good.
The sled was made by Nathan, Corbin, Avery, and Mackenzie. On May 18th, 2023, 28 volunteers helped clean up Chilkoot in Catagon Island. There were 260 fishing-related items on this beach, including fishing lines, bait boxes, buoys, etc. They found 391 items of plastic tarps, treated timber pellets, and more. They found 325 items, including tires, clothes, footwear, toys, and more. They found 437 pieces of consumer good and foodware. They found 1,225 pieces of microplastic. Post, you can find the click and info. By Maya Rachel David Gabby. There were 9 volunteers that cleaned this beach on May 15th, 2026.
Items were removed. 54 items removed were fishing lines, bait boxes, buoys, etc.
Volunteers found 103 construction and packaging materials like plastic tarps, treated timber, pellets, etc. 109 household waste items were removed. Like tires, clothing, footwear, toys, etc. 142 consumer goods, including food, like wrappers and packaging.
Over 146 microplastic pieces were found on these beaches.
And that's it. All right, any questions for the 6th graders?
What was the most unusual thing you found?
And they didn't actually help with the cleanup. They're helping this year.
Ah,
They just used our data from last year to make this story map.
so it's just the first year you've done this? With the
That-
data like you've done it here?
Yeah, last year was our first year collecting data.
Okay, so then you're gonna do it again this year.
Yeah,
Be very interesting to see then.
yeah. And so all the 6th graders will get to help clean up the beaches this year. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, 6th graders. Yeah, so thank you not only to our presenters, but also to the entire 6th grade class. They've been spending the majority of the year with Mrs. Jacobson, their science teacher, learning about marine debris and plastics. And so this was a big project for them. It took a long time and a lot of hard work. So yeah. And again, this will be shared on our social media and on Takshanuk's website, so everyone will have access to that. So also this data that we collected last year, Christina has turned this into just a really nice top 10 graphic, so we can all see what we found last year, our big items. And so we'll have these on a table. Oh, they're over there on the Ocean Conservancy table, which, by the way, there's a lot of shirts over there that folks should totally take, especially you sixth graders who are big fans of Mr. Beast. Get some Team C shirts for you. Okay, so if no one has any other questions, comments, all right, we are going to, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. We're gonna move into the training part of the evening. So if you are helping on Chilkoot Islands or the Takshanuk, this is a required training, but if you're helping with any of the cleanups, it's great information to have. So, but first, let me just say a few things about Christina. So Christina is the Arctic Marine Debris Manager for the Ocean Conservancy. She supports communities, organizations, and tribes across the state and the Arctic region in their marine debris efforts. Prior to this, she spent 7 years working as the Education and Marine Debris Coordinator at the Sitka Sound Science Center. And we are delighted that she traveled up here for the 2nd year in a row to help us do this training and to help us with the cleanup. So we're going to talk about how we collect data, and we're going to do some practice.
I have it on my
Oh, okay.
computer.
Yeah. So
We'll just swap
It'll be
laptops.
Mute mine. Oops.
Sounds good. I'm unmuted on here. Should that be good? Okay. That's great. Well, thank you, Tracy, for the introduction, and thank you guys for being here. I recognize a lot of you from last year's cleanup, and also from my visit to the schools today. So thank you all. It's good to see you again. This is just an overview of what I'll run through. I'll do a brief introduction to myself. We'll talk a little bit about data collection and why it's important. I'll share with you the data form that we'll be using, and we'll do just kind of a brief little mock data collection so that when we're out in the field, we're familiar with the data card. We'll have time for some questions at the end. And then if you guys, those of you who were part of the cleanups last year, remember Patty Chambers, who came along took photos and videos. She put together a short 2-minute video highlighting the cleanups last year. So I'll share that at the end to make sure that you guys stay. I work for Ocean Conservancy as Arctic Marine Debris Manager, like Tracy mentioned, and I'm based out of Sitka. I've been there for about 9 years. I moved there in 2015 as an AmeriCorps volunteer. And like most people who come to Alaska for a year, I stayed, and it is now my permanent home, and I love living there. My background is in education, and so I worked for a long time at the Science Center doing education programs, got to do some marine debris work as well, and really enjoyed that. So now I get to do education around marine debris and marine debris cleanups. And so I really feel like I have the best job in the world. And Ocean Conservancy is a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C., and they do a lot of ocean advocacy work around all sorts of issues from shipping, ocean acidification, fisheries, and one of the big programs that Ocean Conservancy works on is plastic pollution and marine debris. And so Ocean Conservancy has been involved in marine debris since 1986 through the International Coastal Cleanup. And the International Coastal Cleanup is the largest volunteer effort for ocean health in the world. So each year, hundreds of thousands of volunteers come together and clean up beaches in their communities. And to date, there have been over 17 million volunteers that have participated. Some of you guys here in Haines are counted in that number, and together have removed over 350 million pounds of trash. And there have been 155 countries that have participated in this event. And what makes this program unique is the global network of coordinators. And so each community or organization that puts on a cleanup has a local coordinator. So in your case, that's Tracy. And the coordinators then become part of this larger global network of coordinators and get to share information with each other and share stories. And get to exchange knowledge with each other about cleanups and what's working in certain areas and what you're finding in certain areas. And then the other thing that makes it unique is this data collection. So since the start, since 1986, volunteers have been collecting data. And that data feeds into a global database called TIDES, and it's the largest global database for marine debris. And it has data all the way going back to 1986. And so it's showing this really good picture of what is being found globally when people are doing cleanups. And I will say there's been sort of a gap in Alaska, and I know that people are collecting data, and there is some data from 2005 to 2016. There's really solid data for Alaska, but there are definitely a lot of gaps. And so we're working to try to compile some of that data so that we can have a better picture of what is being found here, because it actually is quite different from what is being found at a global scale and what is being found, especially in urban areas. Did you have a question?
Yeah, whenever I go to the beach, I always am picking up trash.
Yeah.
If I got this app, could I log it and help, just not at the same day as other people?
Definitely. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, so one of the ways that you can collect data is with a paper data card, and the other is with an app. And so the paper data card, there's kind of a general paper data card that is, used globally. But in looking at this data card, we kind of realized that it didn't work as well for Alaska, because a lot of what we find here is more like fishing gear related and kind of industry related, whereas a lot of what you find in an urban area is more like consumer debris, single-use plastics, straws, food containers and things like that. And so we have this paper data card, but then we also have one that is Alaska and Arctic specific. And on this data card, you log, your cleanup location, the type of environment, whether or not it's an underwater cleanup, a cleanup from a boat, a beach cleanup, and then, number of people in group, and some basic information like that. And then on the back side, it asks you tally all of the information that you collect. And if you opt for the paper data card, you can take a picture of it and send to your local coordinator or email to me, and we'll make sure it gets into the database. Or you can use the app. And once it's downloaded, it works offline. So if you're out on a remote beach, you can, pull up the app and document what you're finding And so it adds up the items that you're finding, and then we have an estimated weight based on those items. And the one thing about this is that it does not yet have that Alaska Arctic specific data information in it. So this is our generic data card. So some of those like fishing gear categories, it doesn't have as specifics, but it is still very, valuable to document that if you're out, and it's a easy, convenient way to do that. So we definitely encourage having that app downloaded. And then all of this data goes into this global database, and it's open access, so anyone can go in and make an account and input your data. And anyone can go in and download a data report. And we have on our team, Sarah Weller, who was also here last year. Some of you guys met. She is sort of the data expert, and she puts on webinars every couple months on this database specifically, so that you can figure out how to use it. And it's helpful to have that tutorial. So if anyone is interested, I can share information about when those webinars will be, and she can share that information with you. And then what's great about having this, database where we're collecting this information, each year a report is generated, the top 10 items found globally, and that is published. And so we can, start comparing kind of across region what we're finding, and we can start working towards policy changes and prevention, because that is the ultimate goal. We know that we have to remove what's there, because if we don't, it's just going to stay there. But to actually stop the problem, we have to work towards preventing it from ending up in the ocean in the first place, and starting to reduce our use of plastic and the amount of plastic made in the first place. And so we have this global top 10 item, but then we also publish these for local communities. And so we're really excited that we will now every year be able to publish this top 10 items collected, and we can start to see if there are trends, if in Haines you're finding the same things year after year, what sorts of maybe local policy measures might you want to look into, or local education and outreach might you want to do. And I want to give a shout out to Russ for this marine debris transport device that he made last year that was so helpful in carrying large styrofoam. I'm hoping that will be used again this year. Maybe it's like motorized this year or something. And these are some examples of policy changes that have been made at a national or statewide level, and I'll just run through a few examples. I think it was in 2021, the local coordinator in Virginia used this data they were on their top 10 items. The first item was balloons that they were finding every year. And so they brought that to the state, and they said, this is a problem, and we have the data to prove it. And so they banned mass intentional balloon releases in the state, which, why is that a thing that people do? I'm not sure, but it is. And then in 2015, the Microbead Free Waters Act, I'm sure many of you remember those, face washes and hand soaps and even toothpaste that we used to use that had those microbeads in it, and those are plastic, and those wash down the drain, end up in the ocean. And so in 2015, all of the microbead in those products was banned, which was a big win. And more recently in California, the Senate Bill 54, which is phasing out single-use plastics and plastic bags throughout California, was enacted, and referencing this data that's collected. So data collection is really important, even though it can feel kind of cumbersome, especially when you're in the field and you're, traversing over rocks, or, walking across a big sandy beach to have to carry this data card and be tracking it as you go. Can be challenging, but it is really important, and it helps make the cleanup have even a greater impact than just the removal of the debris. So I'm really excited that you guys are willing to collect this data and submit it to our database. And so this is the Alaska trash data form that we're going to be using, and this is what was used last year. And we're gonna walk through it. I'll walk through it first up here, and then we'll just do kind of a practice together. There are a lot of items on it, and it can be kind of overwhelming at first. But once you're familiar with it, and once you go through it, for just a couple minutes, you'll get the hang of it. And so for the purposes of this, demonstration I'll do up here, I'm gonna use this cleanup that we did in Sitka at Shoals Point from last May. And so on the data card on the front, like I mentioned earlier, writing down just that basic site information. This can be done ahead of time. Name, date, always good to put your email address just in case I can't read something and I need to get a hold of you. Number of people in your group, type of environment, mode of collection, and then some of that site information. And then at the bottom, this is for after the cleanup. So last year at Shoals Point, there was actually a dead humpback whale that was on the beach. And we weren't the first ones to find it. We knew it was there, but we had already planned this cleanup, and we actually went out with a group of high school students, the marine biology students, and they worked on doing a necropsy on this whale with, a trained professional from NOAA who was there with them. And then we also did this cleanup. So we did make sure to document that there was this whale there. If there's any notable brands that you find a lot of or source identification, I'll have Google Translate downloaded on my phone and take a picture of, a bottle that maybe has a different language writing on it, and it'll tell you where it's from. And so writing down if you're finding things from, the same place, making sure to note that there. Also, if there's any items that you didn't remove for whatever reason, maybe they were too large. I know last year that happened at the Katsahine. There were a lot of really large items that there was just no way to get out without, more machinery or more people there. So make note of that too. And you can always write down the coordinates in that section as well. And then on the back is where we have all of the itemized data count. So the top part is fishing and aquaculture related items. And so the way that we typically do it is have the, tally marks as you're going, and then at the very end, add them up to get your total count. And then for some of the things like fishing gear, it's kind of hard. It can be hard to count, itemized fishing gear if it's all tangled in a big knot. So sometimes we'll just get the weight on certain things and then item counts on others. It really just kind of depends, and it's okay to kind of combine those things with each other. And then the bottom is the personal hygiene and consumer goods. And then below that, tiny trash. So last year in the cleanups, we found just tons of microplastics and, small pieces of foam. And all of those were counted. We counted, so I can't remember what the total was, 10,000 or something. I don't know. And so putting those tally marks down there for that. And then any other items that are not listed on here, you can write down in the bottom corner. And it can be hard to try to, match things to certain categories. And so I always tell people just do your best. If you're not sure, put it in something that is the most similar to it, or just write it down. So last year we had written all over the backside of papers, all sorts of other items, which is totally fine, because then I can go through at the end and figure out if they do fit into a category, or if not, it's okay to have sort of other items listed. And then if we're realizing people are finding a lot of the same other items, maybe that's something we need to consider adding to the data form. So always helpful to do that. And then at the very bottom, we have kind of the cleanup summary, where we, we'll write down the weight of trash collected, the distance cleaned. If you have a count of trash bags, you can put that there. Area cleaned. We rarely actually have that, but feel free to put it. I'll say that, it's as much information as you have is helpful, but it's also okay if you don't have all the information. We'll take the data in any form, in any completion that you have it. Anything really is helpful. And so with that, we will do a little just kind of walk through, and maybe we'll pass out the data forms so you can get familiar with them. And then Tracy and I will hold up some items, and we'll just have you guys look through and find them.
You suggest that we bring GPSs?
It's always helpful to have. I also will just take a photo of the thing, and it'll show you the coordinates on that photo, but a GPS is more important. So if you have one.
Oh, yeah.
It's just an app, yeah.
So there is an app option and then there's this.
Each one of us.
Yeah.
Mostly, they ended up meeting.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah, I know, yes, I realize that is gonna be a bad deal.
Oh,
Because
obviously,
carrying
yeah,
pencils,
yeah.
just ridiculous.
Okay, so. If anyone like wants a pencil and feels like writing along with us, you're welcome to, but you also don't have to, and we can just kind of. Practice finding the items on here and get familiar with it as we go through.
Should we turn on the video? So we start on the video too.
Okay. So I can. The bag.
Oh, okay.
And so, on the cleanup, what we found is most helpful, which is sometimes hard to stick to, is to. Sorry, we got started early.
We did start a little early, which now I'm realizing, yeah. But we'll get you all caught up.
Yeah. So what we found easiest is to work in teams of like 2 to 4 or 5 and have one person in charge of the data cards, who can also pick up garbage. If you're collecting data, doesn't mean you can't pick up garbage. And then the others, as you're picking up garbage, either kind of keep track of what you're, collecting and go tell your data recorder every so often, or you can call it out as you're collecting. It does get challenging because sometimes you get kind of spread out. So just do your best, but like don't drive yourself crazy trying to do this perfectly. Even just getting a snapshot of what you're finding is really helpful. So we'll start with that. Okay. So what is that? You see that?
Looks like a pipe.
Yeah. So
So you find it on your data card.
Yeah.
Where would we tally that? And those of you on Zoom, you can look on the one that's on the screen.
This is maybe a hard one to start with because. Sorry.
Instructions.
Yeah, I would think
That's right.
Yeah, I would put that as construction materials, or in that case, if you're not sure, you can write like PVC tubing at the bottom. And then, I'll fit it into a category at the end, or we'll have a separate category for that.
And we find a lot of this.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does the database retain the more detailed information? I mean, if
Oh, the like other items,
construction material, but it's actually PVC pipe because that's, one of many.
right?
Does the database reflect the definer ID?
Yeah, so we do have, if you write down other items listed, those can go into the database. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do one a little bit easier.
I didn't see construction material.
Can you point to where it is on the?
Oh, yeah,
For those-
construction
some
and
people-
material.
Oh, it's gotta be.
You can make like a little note on the side. Oh, plastic.
Okay, but.
Plastic.
Okay,
the one below.
Nice, yeah, that was quick.
Very
Yeah,
good.
so
We'll find a lot of these too.
And like the top categories do, as you start to get the hang of it, those will be helpful. So you'll know as you're finding like food related items, those will always be under consumer goods. So you can just go there and then they're listed alphabetically. Should have mentioned that within their categories.
Oh, and this is a number 1 and it's really good and clean. So that's one we would try to recycle, but we very rarely find that. It's usually really dirty plastic that we can't recycle. And so it's recyclable, we'll have yellow bags. If it's not, it goes in the garbage bag. Everywhere. And this stuff, especially bags, it breaks into the little pieces.
It's right there.
You litter. Matt will come through and back in.
Is there a separate category here for styrofoam?
Yeah, so we have foam packaging.
And that what you wanted, it's foam packaging? That's not packaging though. It's insulation.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
Like, that's so common, it should be its own.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's different
Yeah.
types of foam
Yeah,
too.
there is foam, like buoys and floats, but if you wanted to make a separate category for like specifically, it's from a dock piece, right, foam dock.
There's
And
a
start as category.
Oh,
Oh, start up there,
under fishing gear,
Yeah.
blocks, stock pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, yeah, thank you.
Because that's usually.
So we've got fish boxes, foam blocks, dock pieces, or construction material. Oh, no.
Yeah, or the
Foam
foam packaging,
packaging.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's,
thank you for that, yes, so foam,
so you have to
dock-
just use your best judgment,
Yeah.
what you think it is.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's gonna be like this big or little tiny pearls. And so then you just have to choose one.
Because of our landslide, we get a lot of good called construction material. We would have-
yeah, we did find a lot of that.
Yeah.
Oil.
Beverage bottle?
Not this one.
Oh, plastic bottle of cans.
Yeah. Exactly. So up here, plastic bottles, and cans, fingers and oils, so that would be, yeah,
And this one, we can't, this is way too dirty. Even if it was, I don't think it's recyclable, even if it was, that's too dirty. Okay. Go with another hard one.
Plastic off somebody's car.
This is plastic.
Other plastic waste,
That's probably what, I mean,
yeah.
the bottom of the personal hygiene.
yeah, does everyone see on, we end up with a lot of other plastic. We just don't know what it is. I actually think it was a piece of a culvert. But
Yeah, and if you do know, that would be a case where you could write, piece of culvert or something. But, most things like that would go under that other plastic waste category.
Less than 50 centimeters.
yeah, nice. You've done this before.
Yeah, so that would be liner rope that's less than 50 centimeters, and the reason, I know it seems kind of silly to have that differentiation, but it helps us understand, like, if that was maybe a lost fishing gear, or like a cut of something, we can understand a little bit more about where it might have come from, the origin, and why it ended up in the ocean.
Plastic coat lid, yeah, other plastic. That looks like an also one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See, nice and clean.
Yeah, and that would be like, I think this is what ends up happening on the cleanup, because you find something like that, and you're like, this should be a category, and I don't want to spend 10 minutes looking for it. So again, you can just write it down. Like, I do not mind going through your data cards, trying to figure out what it fits into. So if you want to write tote lid on there, totally fine. And last year I know we had like an extra piece of paper.
I was
Because
gonna
we
say,
had the
can we
maps.
have an extra piece of paper
Yeah.
for other?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right here.
This is not, yeah, we do have some on right paper, yeah.
Food wrapper.
Mhm. Food wrapper.
Wrapper.
Yeah, so food wrapper and then
Candy wrapper.
plastic, and I can't tell if that
It is plastic.
okay, yeah. Yeah, so food wrapper, candy, chips, sorry, I was looking at food containers, which is,
So, yeah. It's wrapper.
but yeah, wrapper.
These are really nice for the garden, by the way. If you need like something to prop up your reme. I saved some last year.
Yeah, oh, yeah. It's very
So you can repurpose things.
Yes. Grocery bag.
Which is on our top 10 list.
Wow.
Right. And we have a plastic bag. But that.
Whatever.
And this one is really nice and clean, so this one could be recycled.
And so will we have two, will they have two separate?
Yeah.
They should keep those separate. Okay.
You'll have a yellow bag for recycling, and it has to be clean. This is clean, so there's actually.
By volunteers.
Yeah, most likely. I actually got this out of the recycling. So this is not authentic marine debris. All right.
There's some items in there too. if we need more.
Oh, okay.
In that blue ocean.
Okay. Should I do this? one?
Okay, yeah.
So I feel like we find a lot of these. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Tobacco product.
Under personal hygiene. Also, what was on your top 10 list, last year was gun shell cartridges, so even
Fine.
looking at the list from last year and maybe just like knowing where those are on the list would be helpful. Yeah,
Those top 10 lists are over there on the Ocean Conservancy table, and it is worth taking a look. It will be, I think it will be helpful. Oh, it's on, this is kind of a good one.
oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a big.
Mhm. Yeah,
Packaging.
this is tough, if it's what I think it is,
I don't know.
okay, yeah. So this is
Found on the beach.
it's a seafood trap, it's for hagfish. These are really bad, when they're in their full form, they have like these little, plastic bits coming off. And the fish, swims in and gets stuck in it, but they're also really bad because seals and sea lions are really curious and they'll go look at it and it gets stuck on their nose. They find a ton of these in Hawaii. And I find them every once in a while on cleanups, not as often, but they're very bad. And so that would go under fishing or seafood traps.
Fishing suits the
Traps, yeah.
But we do also find the bait boxes, and if they're in good shape, we save those. They can go into your recycling. Even if they're dirty, put them in your recycling, because we will give them back out to some of our fisher folks. Okay, let's see.
I brought not really debris items, but just.
Oh, but it's a good one, because we do find this. Mhm.
But where personal hygiene, we don't put that in the debris bag. Yeah, so footwear is right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
It's under.
Under personal hygiene, yeah, PPE. Right there.
I feel like this is something that we find a lot of too.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that we found a ton of these.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, the other, so it's not a grocery bag, but we do have a different category, other bags that are plastic, so that would go under there.
Okay. We could keep going, but I feel like you guys have it.
And if you want to take these home with you, you're welcome to. You can study them. But no pressure. And it's not meant to be like a stressful thing at all. It's really whatever you can collect will be helpful. Yeah. Questions? Yeah.
So we'll have the bags to separate things that can be recycled or used again. Are we gonna note that anywhere? If any of it was like.
We could at the end, if we're able to, I don't know if we'll be able to get a final weight, and like how much was recycled versus something like that. But I think that would probably be the best way to do that. If you want to keep track, you're definitely welcome to, but not for these purposes. It's just what the item is, yeah.
Do you know what the app is listed as?
Yeah, go back to it. Called the Clean Swell app, and it should pop up, or you can use the well, QR code. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry, we did start a little early. I forgot to look at the time. We were on a roll. I know you all that came at 6:30 for the training. Thank you. And so just to review, if you're signed up for the Chilkoot Islands cleanup, we're leaving on Saturday, this Saturday, May 4th. We're leaving at 9 a.m. We're taking the Taz. So that's parked in the small boat harbor. So when you walk down the ramp, it's the first boat on the right. And we're leaving at 9. So be there before 9. It takes about an hour to get down to the island. And then it'll be a lot of shuttling. People, CIA will be there to help us shuttle folks. And we'll have small teams on beaches cleaning, again, groups of 2 or 3. However you want to work with your team to be keeping track of that data, what we're finding. And then at 2 o'clock is when high tide is. That's when Todd Stevens, the captain of the Taz, will blow his horn. And that means get back to your pickup spot with your garbage. He'll come over, we'll do the garbage shuttle, passenger shuttle. We'll get everyone hopefully back on the boat around 2:33, and we'll start heading back. It'll take an hour to get back. It'll take Jake, who will have all the garbage, a little bit longer. So if you're interested in helping out when the garbage arrives, you'll have a little break, and then we'll coordinate when you can come back and help get that garbage from his boat into the dump truck. Yes.
Can people ride with Jake?
No. No, we're gonna, because they're kind of on their own time frame. So, yeah, if you're volunteering, we're going on the tab.
I called to volunteer and I was put on a waiting list, so.
For the Chilkoot, yeah, let's chat after that. Okay, yes.
So you're thinking at 4 o'clock that garbage will land at the Taz
I'm
parking.
thinking 5 o'clock, the garbage will land. I'm thinking we'll land around 3:34, and around 5 o'clock is when the garbage will roll in.
And will you walk, it be walked up the main ramp?
It will be in super sacks, and we'll use the crane to pull it onto a trailer. We'll pull the trailer right up next to the dump truck. And then this is where we need people to just be shuttling it out of the super sack into the dump truck.
I'm just wondering which part of
Oh, the big parking lot area.
big, like by the ice. I use it by the ice. Thank
Yeah. Yeah. Good question.
It said to wear hiking boots, but if we're gonna be getting on and off the boat, do we wear water boots instead, like?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I mean, I don't think I think I probably wore like these shoes or hiking shoes last year.
Okay, so we won't be going into water.
Well, but you could. You could, so I don't have a great answer to that. You might get wet if you wear shoes like this, but you might be more comfortable hiking in shoes like this.
To get off the boat with like keys and
Yeah. Yeah, but you do want some sort of good shoe when you're walking around on the beach. So, yeah, maybe extra tough if you're worried about your feet getting wet. Yeah. Yeah, because it is a little bit, hopefully we just have dead calm, very flat waters. But if that doesn't happen, then it can be a little flashy. So it's an adventure, definitely an adventure. It's gonna be a lot of fun. If you're doing the Takshanuk cleanup, that's on Wednesday. Our backup day for that one is Thursday. In your packets that I sent out to everyone, it says 10 a.m., but that does not work with our tides. So we're leaving at 9 a.m. for the Takshanuk. That's Wednesday, May 7th, May 8th. The backup day is May 9th. And so for that one, we'll meet in that big parking lot area for the boat launch. So you won't actually go into the small boat harbor. You'll go to where people launch their personal boats, because we'll mostly have guest support. For that one, we will have a few folks ride with Jake. And then we'll get him going a little bit sooner, because it's going to take him a little bit longer. And he'll be kind of stationed out there in front of the captain. And then whoever we can put on skiff will take you over. Before we get in those skiffs or get any boats, we'll make sure that you are with, we already have leaders for all 6 sections of the beach. You'll be assigned to a leader. You and your leader will go to your section of beach. And that's the only section you'll work on. So that person will be keeping track of data. Again, we'll decide on a time. I can't remember right off the top of my head when we're nearing high tide. It's close to 2 o'clock too. That's when we'll come get the garbage. So we'll only take one person, we'll load all that garbage into super sacks on the skip. The skips will take those super sacks to Jake's boat. He has a crane that he can put those onto his boat. And then they'll come back and get you. We'll have radios this year, so we'll have some good communication. Okay, so that's the plan. It's a lot of working parts. You have to be flexible and ready for changes. You know, we're out there in the elements, so bring, you know, all the layers. Make sure you have plenty of food and water. None of that's provided. But all the garbage sacks are provided. We'll have recycling bags. We'll have the data cards and clipboards. We'll have some tools. Please bring a life jacket. Well, for the Chilkoot Islands, you don't need one. For the Takshanuk, you do. I'll have some extras. If you have bear spray, please bring it, but I'll also have extra bear spray. All right, any questions about?
What's the ETA back at the dock on the Takshanuk days?
It's like around 4 o'clock also. Yeah, and that one, it should, because it's such a short distance, the garbage won't be that far behind us. So, a few folks stick around to help with that fire line and garbage into the dump truck. Yeah.
You said last year, the first time you started collecting data on this. Have you been to these places before?
Yeah.
How many times have they been cleaned up? Like, is it the amount going down? Is it a ton every year?
No, great question. So, all of these beaches have been cleaned before, but last year was our first year keeping track of what we were finding. And so, so we're doing the exact same cleanup we did last year because we want to see what happened within a year's time. So the data collection is kind of new, but these beaches have been cleaned. And a few of them were new to the cleanup last year. Takshanuk hadn't been cleaned before. We had a lot of garbage there last year. Twin Coves had been cleaned 2 years ago when Molly was organizing the Reed cleanup. And 3 years. So we actually, it was like not that bad. It was enough that I actually was able to stuff all the garbage into my Subaru Forester. I mean, it was like, you know, stuffed in there, but it wasn't too bad. But it wasn't a dump truck load. So hopefully it'll be interesting to see that we want to see what's happening. So yeah.
And on like these sheets that we have is for like all of the locations, but then we also have on back end in our database, we have summaries for each location. So we can compare each location year after year, as well as, you know, the overall picture. Yeah.
I see that there's a lot of chats. There's questions on.
No, that's just what I.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I know the library closes at 7, but I have a quick video to share that will hopefully get everyone super excited with cleanups this year and also reminiscent of the cleanups from last year. If now is an okay time, I will play it. It's just 1 minute and 40 seconds. I don't know if the volume. No, music. Should I mute myself?
You're right, you turned it hard. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for volunteering. And you're welcome to give me a call or email me, Tracy@Takshanuk.org, if you have any questions. Answer me. Thanks, everyone.